Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
You're going to be so happy that you tuned in today. We had such a great time meeting Walter Finley and his partner, April Dawn. They make beautiful music together. You couldn't find two people who are polar opposites, two sides of the same coin. They have a fantastic backstory on how they met, and the songs that they produce are absolutely wonderful. Let's take a listen to Big Star in the Sky.
You had a dream you planned to try. You'd be a big star in the sky. But you're afraid you've wasted way too much time, with nothing left to do but cry. Baby, we all get frustrated. Being a star is overrated. I can see how hard you try to shine, like a big star in the sky. You see the light in all these faces passing by, and you wonder if you could be as bright. But you don't know how strongly I believe, reflecting in those faces, it's your light that you see. Baby, don't get so frustrated. Being a star is overrated. I wish you could see how bright you shine, like a big star in the sky. You're brighter than any star I've ever seen. Every day I thank the Lord that you are here with me. Don't give up your dream. Baby, don't get so frustrated. Being a star is overrated, and you don't even have to try to shine. You are a big star in the sky. Give up your dream. A big star in the sky. Give up your dream. You're brighter than them all. Give up your dream. You're brighter than you know. Give up your dream. Shine on your flame. Give up your dream. Shine on for me. Give up your dream. Like a big star in the sky.
Walter Finley is a multi-award-winning singer-songwriter and performer from North Carolina who originally hails from Long Island. He's been touring about with his partner April Dawn, and they just won Tour of the Year at the Carolina Country Music Awards, among many other awards that we'll get to talk about. This American troubadour is an artist worth looking into. And with that, I welcome Walter Finley and April Dawn to the Long Island Sound podcast. So great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
What I like about what I do, because I like talking about myself, is discovering new music and listening to the songs that you gave to me. There's just something about your voice and the baritone that fills it and the harmonies you guys do. It's really kind of something to behold, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed your music.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah.
We got to chat a few days ago about you starting out on Long Island, and then if I recall, Walter, you moved down to Columbia, South Carolina, correct?
Yes.
So tell me about that musical journey of the move from New York and the hiatus and the exodus, which a lot of my friends are doing as well down south, and how that affected your art and your music.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, first of all, Long Island is where I spent pretty much all my life. I was born and spent most of my life there. And I was born in Huntington, lived in East Northport, Comac area when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to the South Shore for a little while. And then I lived in West Hampton Beach for about 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been cool. I went to Five Towns College, where I met one of my best friends, my friend Steve Messina, and we journeyed out to the Hamptons to start playing music in 1985, 86, 87, around there.
Okay.
And we did really well. You know, the two of us did well, and we did our own things, and I ended up making somewhat of a career out of that. I would play every night of the week, you know. So we had the Hamptons.
Wow.
At one point, I was a house musician at the Montauk Yacht Club. And as years went on, I became a house guy at B.B. King's in Times Square for a little while. So, you know, that island in New York and upstate, and it was a lot of places to make music and play, and a lot of great memories playing there. But I never really dove into or broke into the industry, right? I just did my own thing. I was a troubadour through and through. I just love to play. For me, playing is just releasing my inner self, or music has a purpose in my life, right?
Right, sure.
I've written very heartfelt healing songs because I needed them, you know. Or if I might write something very sweet and beautiful because I'm a little too hyperactive and I needed to calm down, right? Or explore those emotions and thoughts. I was able to bring my emotions out and see what's going on inside me. That's why I originally was writing.
You brought up a good term, and I read it in your bio about being a troubadour. Mm-hmm. And what I liked about your story is, and I've talked to a lot of singer-songwriters who, you know, are in that constant struggle as they're starting out to get gigs, right? And your method as a troubadour is, you go out with your guitar, I assume. You walk into a place and say, I'd like to play music for you. And you play music for them right then and there, so they get to experience who you are, which I think is phenomenal. Gutsy.
That's exactly how Steve and I got our first beach bar gig together. It was called the Beach Bar in Hampton Bays. And we walked in, sat on bar stools.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we sat on these bar stools. And we got the owner in front of us, and we just started jamming in front of him. And we got every Saturday. And that's how that one thing started. But originally, it was a guy named Larry Hoffman brought me to, he had a place in Quogue called Dockers. He had another place up in Oakdale. He brought me there first, and I played there for a while. And then one day he came up to me and he said, this summer I'm bringing you to the Hamptons. And he put me in Dockers, which was a really cool place to play. An amazing experience. And from there we just that's where we went to play. And then we, at the same time we were doing, we would play every Wednesday night at Turtle Bay on 2nd and 52nd in Manhattan. Mm. And then Steve had gotten this gig in Prohibition on Tuesday nights, so I get to go to do that. And then from there, I started playing down in the West Village a lot, and that's what we did. I took the train, subways, and I did that every night. We found places to play.
You know what's interesting about Long Island, for people who don't know, it's kind of segmented out. I mean, there are people from the North Shore, the South Shore, and the East End, and then Queens and Brooklyn. You know, which we consider part of Long Island geographically, but if anyone says, hey, I'm going to the city, you're either going to Queens, Brooklyn, or Manhattan, you know, maybe the Bronx, and never to Staten Island because it's a bridge too far. But it's interesting that you were pulled out to the East End. And there's a certain community of singer-songwriters out in the East End. There's a guy named Gene Casey, who I'm actually going to see tonight.
He's amazing. I love his
And Nancy
band.
Atlas.
Nancy Atlas. Interesting. I went to school with Nancy's brother in like high school.
Oh, really?
We were friendly. He was a great guy. I never saw him again, but that's my connection to Nancy Atlas, I guess. You know, that's about as far as it goes.
Well, I'll make mention as I get, because I'm trying to get Nancy, who's a phenomenal singer, on the program. But hey, I don't want to ignore the beautiful lady that's sitting next to you, April Dawn. And April, is that your real name, April Dawn?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So tell me how you roped in this Yankee from New York and you began singing together. I'm very curious about that.
Well, I have to be honest. When Walter and I met, we didn't like each other at all.
I wouldn't go that far.
I didn't like his accent. He talked entirely too fast, and I couldn't understand anything he said. And he felt the same way about me with my country accent. So it took some time, and you know it's such a different lifestyle. You can't get any more opposite than us. He grew up with a pool in his backyard. I grew up with a creek in my backyard. So it took time. It's like I tell everybody, he chased me till I caught him.
Now, if I recall, you were a photographer at that point, and I think you kept on asking him to play certain songs that he didn't know how to play.
Yeah, we were.
And I think so take it from there.
It was a setup. A mutual friend of ours was having a party, and she invited me to come take pictures. And I actually went with an ex-boyfriend to take pictures because he was a photographer as well. And so Walter's on stage, and he's singing songs that he knew and everything, and I looked at the audience and they were all older Southern people, and I kept thinking about growing up down here being a Southerner and thinking, you know, what songs would they like to hear, what would be familiar to them, what's something they could sing along to.
Sure.
So I requested a couple, and Walter didn't know them until finally on the third try he was like, well, I don't know that one, it's a really great song, do you? And I said, yes, I do. Would you like for me? And he said, would you like to play? And I said, well, I can, if you want me to. So he handed me his guitar, and 3 or 4 songs later, I'm like, hey, do you want this thing back or what?
Well, it was a thing I did because I learned somewhere along the way that there's nothing better than letting somebody come up and take the spotlight at a party or a wedding or anything like that and let them sing. And so when they play, I'm usually like, all right, you have to do 3 songs. And then after they get to 3, I'm like, you have to do 7 songs. And it's a joke, you know, it's like I'm getting paid to watch you play. But that's a memory people have for a lifetime, that they got up and they got to sing. And, you know, what I do every day people don't always get to do. So when they have an opportunity, you know, music, performing, it's about sharing. So if you, especially young people, if you can support the young people to get up there and you know, when they're nervous and they do it, they never forget that. That's a beautiful thing to do. And that's kind of what I was doing with her. I'm like, play another one.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. As I've listened, and Debbie, my wife, and I, when we go out, we always look for live music, is I see that divide between very good performers, and then what I would say is crossing over to be an entertainer and to engage and be in the moment or be present to your audience. And April, you pulled that out. You recognize that, hey, the audience may not be connecting with Walter at that particular moment because there was something that was not familiar to them.
I don't think that was happening. I was totally connected to everybody.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I spoke to April. She said you were sinking pretty fast, and she saved you.
Oh, no. I was just
That's not the way I saw it.
You know, actually, if you go to our Facebooks, you can see video on my Facebook of the first time I ever played his Breed Love guitar. It's up. It's that day that we met.
Wow.
It's
now,
on there.
it's really... Now, it's funny you mentioned, because you're an artist, Walter, for Breed Love, right?
Yeah. I am.
So, if you look right behind me...
I saw it.
That's my Breed Love.
I know. As soon as you signed on, I'm like,
that's my
Breed Love.
That's my Breed Love guitar. I love it. I got it in a music shop in Saratoga when I was looking for something different. And this guy said, hey, there was some guys from Taylor's who started Breed Love, and I think you'll really like it. And I fell in love with it. It's just
I love restringing it real fast. I love being able to restring it real fast on the spot. No pegs.
Right. Hey, so let's do this. Let's just take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about that first song that our audience heard, Big Star in the Sky, and just give us some aspects of how that song came about. So we'll be right back after this short break. Hang with us, everybody. At the Long Island Sound, we're much more than a podcast. We're building a community. Please go to gigdestiny.com, check out all our social media links, subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. Please comment, call the listener line, tell us what you think, what questions we should ask, who we should have on the show. And most of all, we thank you for your generous support. And remember, support the artists who are guests on the show. Now back to the podcast. Steve Yusko, your host with the Long Island Sound. We're back with Walter Finley and April Dawn, having a great conversation. And before the break, Walter, we spoke about Big Star in the Sky, the song that our audience heard before we started the podcast. Tell me a little bit about how that came about.
For me personally, of course, the songs have meaning for me. And there's a message in there for myself. Mm-hmm. But I was really thinking about, there are people in my life that I was witnessing and seeing, not so much for younger folks, but for people who were a little bit older and they were looking at me doing what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Because my whole life I was told, you're just too old. By the time I was 29, record companies were like, we love what you do, but you're just too old for us. Wow. I literally, and I often reflect back and like, then why did I keep going? Because I love music. I love to play, and there's nobody that can stop me from playing and performing. It's, mm-hmm. Just because I'm not on The Voice, winning The Voice or getting noticed doesn't mean I suck, right?
Right.
That was the shame of that show. I was like, people judge people for singing, and singing's not something to be judged. That's the voice, for me, singing is the voice of my heart. How do you judge the voice of my heart? You can't.
Right.
So I would see these people and they're like, they have dreams. And they have things that they wanted to do. And I saw it so much and they kind of try it, but they just don't think they can do it. They just don't believe, or because of the societal...
they're afraid of being judged.
The societal rules that they think are rules. So Big Star in the Sky is literally, I'm saying, you had a dream, you planned to try, and you're afraid it's too late, and you sit there and you cry that you didn't follow your dream. So I'm saying, go for it, man. Go for it. Write your songs, sing your songs, find a place. There's a place for you, And an interesting thing about that song is it was probably one of the first tools I used to grab Miss April into my life. Was that song?
That was so not there. It was not there at all.
But she was struggling. She was having such a struggle, and in the middle of the night, I sent it to her on the phone. And she never said anything to me until years later. She goes, I listened to that song, and I cried, and I listened to it, and you've really got me with that song. I never knew until we were together for a few years.
Right. So let me, you bring up a good subject. I remember listening to an interview with David Grohl from the Foo Fighters, who really lamented. Yeah, he's great. And he lamented the tragedy of America's Got Talent and all these shows that will take a person, and I think this is horrible, to be honest with you, and reform them over the weeks, throw new clothes on them. And I can understand it. But it also makes people try to form themselves into something they're not. And being true to yourself and your art and exposing yourself and continuing with that is really something to be admired in what we do.
I think it's like this, honestly. Normal will never be extraordinary.
Ooh, there's a song in that.
Yeah, she's got some good stuff. We'll be coming out with songs from April. I think before the year's end, we'll have some extraordinary songs from April, and I plan on it. We've already started recording some stuff. But I think that, songwriting and music and going for your dreams. And I just want to back up. I also have a niece, Samantha, who is just an amazing singer. Wow. So I had her in mind while I was writing song too.
What's her name? What's her full name? Samantha?
She goes under Samantha Joe, I think. And she's doing Christian music right now. And she's singing with a band called pursuing JC, and they're amazing. These kids are amazing. Oh, the antidote to the song is, I wish you could see what a big star you are to me. You know, the most important things in our lives, right, are our loved ones. There's nobody more important. If your family and who you're with, you're already a star. Everybody is. I think John Lennon said, right, you are, everybody's. It's true.
Right.
That's what's really important. So when your dreams don't come true, you better step back and look at what you really have,
And
you know, and where you really are. And Big Star in the Sky kind of mentions that. I wish you could see, you know.
And also, there's nothing more beautifully amazing than someone who is actually doing something that they love to do with their whole heart. If they're very passionate about something and they're doing it despite everything else, then that's the most beautiful thing on earth is when you keep getting back up.
I think art is something that, like for me, I'd love using my hands, whether it's working with wood, cooking, painting. I just love using my hands. So, but when you cook, like I lived alone for many years and I would write. And like I'd have a studio set up in the living room and the kitchen right over there. And I'd record some tracks and play them through all the speakers and go in the kitchen and start cooking and listening to my own music. And say, oh, I should change this. Oh, but it kept me busy. When I lived alone, you know, having a fireplace and cooking food takes up time and it's satisfying. It's just something I did with my hands, or building something. And then you get to step back and look at what you built. You get to sit back and eat what you just cooked. You get to listen to the music you just made. It's art you were creating.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I find this particularly with guys, and I can reflect on myself, is I like to work with my hands as well. And is that satisfaction of, I did that, you know, for whatever, you know, 190%, I did that, you know, and I can point to something, and it's that creative urge that I think we all have to create and to express ourselves is really important. I want to ask you a question, though. In looking at your career and your tenacity, I'll say, in doing what you do, obviously there's struggles, you know, making ends meet, you know, taking the trip down south to hone your craft and what have you. What would your advice be to a new singer-songwriter getting out? What would what would you say to them if you had them in the room with you right now? Right.
And perform in front of people as much as you can. There's something about performing in front of people. You know, I have this habit of, I need to learn a new song. And I will listen to it in the morning, kind of get a feel for it. I'll be playing it that night. And I'll play it at the beginning of the night, the end of the night, and I'll do it every night, and I'll never listen to it again.
Okay.
I'll just start playing it. And the first time I play it, I know I'm going to mess it up. I've come to a point to be allowed to make mistakes and not let it go, oh my God, I did this. Who cares? But my advice to a musician doing that is make sure you end it really good.
Okay.
And people know when to clap. So you end it good. Now, before you backed up, you said, you know, you went into bars and actually got the gigs. Well, yeah, that's what I did. But I also found a way to negotiate with bar owners that seemed to work. I mean, how does a guy walk in and work 8 days a week, years straight, right? You negotiate. One technique I used, I'd walk in and say, what's the slowest night of your week?
Okay.
Oh, Monday night. Okay. I'll work at half price for 3 weeks to build an audience. And if I build an audience, then you gradually bring me up to full pay. That sounds fair. Let's do it. And at the end of the 4 weeks, you say, yeah, it's still kind of even, but I'm still making some money and I like doing it. Then you could stay there. You're working every Monday night. So if you're making $150 every Monday night, that's $600 a month, right? That's $7,200 a year you just made on a Monday night.
Right.
Is that right? Did I do the math right?
Now
you
I don't
times
know.
that
I'm
by
horrible
7.
at math.
You times that by 7, and it goes up for the weekend. You're making a good career just playing in restaurants and bars. But you know what
you do when you do that, Walter, is you recognize that the establishment owner needs you to help build an audience and help to move product and what have you. And you're partnering with them at that point and saying, hey, I understand
That's right.
what you need to do. And you don't want to just shell out X and not see a return. So guess what? I'll take some responsibility and let's see what we can do together. And you just lowered the bar for him or her to allow you to come into their venue. And then who knows where it goes from
because
there.
I would walk into strange towns. If you're living in West Hampton Beach or Northport or Comac and you go into, near
Anywhere.
Queens or somewhere, and you don't, do you have a following? No, but I'll build one for you. And that's just that one side of business of playing those kind of venues. Then you have to remember, what is your job? What is my job for playing for these people? My job is to sell another beer.
True, right. Yep.
That's what your job is. It's not a concert. That's a whole nother aspect to get into.
Right.
Now that's a whole nother game. But if you know, so part of my what I would tell my restaurateur is, well, I know I can get somebody to stick around after they eat and buy another drink. And if I get 20 people to do that, I just paid for myself. And they understand that. That's what they want to do. They want to sell another drink. They want to make money off of having you there. They don't want to spend money. They don't need to spend money and lose money on you. They want to make money with their artist. So, and that's how I had to do it. And I know what my vibe is in a bar. I know where I belong. I don't belong in a rowdy rock and roll bar. That's not going to work. I need a 3-star, 4-star restaurant. I'll do really well, or something where the clientele is a certain echelon that fits with the sound that I'm making.
Right.
That's, so you got to know where you belong and what you can do for that, what you can offer. Now, as far as going in another direction to do shows and writing your music, I think you should write. I think you should go, if you've never done this before, go to write-arounds and meet other writers. Go to open mics, and if you don't feel like you belong there, try practice and get better until you can get to the level where you are. And you'll talk to people, and people will guide you. Go to where you know things are happening. You have to be in the milieu of things, right?
Sure.
I had a vocal teacher whose son was a very prominent guitar player, pretty famous. And he would say this. He goes, you need to be in the milieu of things, Walter. Like, my son got a job at SIR Studios, and that's where he worked.
Wow.
And he got to play for very famous people, and he got into the right... So you go to Manhattan, right? If you want to play music, you live in New York, go to Manhattan. Go to the places where you're going to get heard. And pay your dues, especially if you're young enough to do it.
Right,
and the cost is big, It'll cost you a normal life. You can't have a normal life if you're going to do this. We're always running. I am so blessed to have a partner that is willing to stand by me everywhere I go. Everywhere.
Right.
Never complains. We travel so good together, right? We can get in the car and hold hands and drive and talk about new places and go new places. And it's... Somebody asked us in another podcast, what's your favorite part? And I said performing. But I thought about it. I'm like, the other favorite part is driving with April.
That's great.
We have to go from here to Virginia to New York, and we drove to Wisconsin last year, Chicago. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. Seeing the countrysides, meeting new people, performing.
That's great. It's wonderful. Hey, let's do this. Let's talk about the other songs that you brought on. This is going to come out in March. When you're going to have your new release, and I really thank you for bringing these to the table. Talk about Lean To, and then we're going to let our audience have a listen to it.
I love Lean To, and it's funny. I just said we love traveling and looking at countryside, and I would see these farms, and I'd see these barns. And we're driving one time. She grew up on a farm. She was a farmer her whole life. And I go, I love those barns. I love the way that looks. She goes, those are called lean-tos. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Everybody in the world knows those are called lean-tos, the lean-to. So we come home. We're on a stay home. I'm writing a song about a lean-to. And April goes,
Nobody's ever written
a song about lean-to.
I think you got something there.
Well, no, you didn't say you got something there. The first time you said it sounded like you're wasting your time. That's stupid.
Right.
But I stood up there and I wrote it. And that's the way I took it. Doesn't mean she meant it that way. That's just the way I felt. But I came downstairs after writing some of it, and I go, check it out. And then she was like, wow, I had no idea what you were going to write. Now, I did call my brother in New York, because he's a musician as well.
Okay.
He's a fabulous bass player, and he's an amazing singer, but he won't sing in front of people. I saw him sing at church one time, and I wept. His voice was that.
Hey, bud.
beautiful.
Really? What's his name?
And,
What's his name? Let's get him a
Austin
plug.
Finley.
Okay.
Austin Finley. Yeah, he's
All right.
amazing. And then he said, I said, I'm writing a song about a lean-to, and just because maybe you can make it. It means like the shelter of another person, or a safe place to go. And I kept it in my mind, and somehow we got it in there. And on another note, this is the first song that April is a co-writer with me on. She wrote a line in the song in the second verse that I think adds so much to the song. You couldn't have asked for a better line to be written, and
All right.
and the recording's coming out great. And so it's the story of our life right now. We're a couple of people that she struggled with music. I struggled in life because I love music so much. So I never had that normal life. I never had the home, and I could have, but I guess I never made it work. I was never very good at relationships until now. Now I'm good at it.
Excellent.
I have a good one. But this lean-to song is basically the dream of getting that home and building a barn with a lean-to, how we both want it and are putting our dreams together. And instead of putting a picture board on the wall to go after what we want in life, I suggested, why don't we write songs about the things we want in life and
Nice.
do it that way. And so this
All right.
Lean-to was the first song at that. Yeah.
All right, so let's. The audience is dying to hear the song right now. I can feel it. So let's listen to Lean To, and we'll be back with Walter and April right after the song. Stick with us, everybody. Check this out.
I'm gonna buy a piece of land and build a little barn with a lean-to. We were talking last night about the things I like. She said, me too. A little river out back, we can run and hide, or go fishing. She's like a garden on the other side of that barn with a lean-to. Yeah, me too. A couple dogs in the yard, don't know what fences are, lots of trees too. A gray gravel road travels down around our home that leads to the swimming hole where the wild things grow, like blackberries. She's like a garden on the other side of that barn with a lean-to. Yeah, me too. Spend your life just trying to find all the dreams you store up in your mind. But as time goes by, you realize they ain't coming. Then she looks at me with those deep green eyes and says, I love my life with you. You're my lead-to. talking last night about the things I like. She said, me too.
Hey, we're back. Hey, that song "Lean To" is really great. Thanks for sharing that with us. Hey, Walter, we were talking earlier about, and it seems to be a point of conversation here in New York about all my friends who are starting to say, you know what, I'm thinking of leaving New York and finding a better life, whether it's in North Carolina or Florida or what have you. So tell me about that journey that you took, because I find that was a big leap, I would think. And how did that come about?
Not only was I a troubadour in music at the time before I left New York, I was also a troubadour in life. You know, I lived alone, and I spent a lot of time alone. And I would literally sing at night. You get home by 1 or 2 in the morning, fall asleep by 3 or 4. You know, I would wake up by 10 o'clock. I would work out, and then I'd have my recording equipment and work on music. Eat, work out, make music, and then get ready to run out and do another show. And that was my life. Well, after a while, that got a little mundane. But I did have a lucky moment when I was approached at a show I was doing, and the owner walked up behind me and said, you know, I would like to help you out. Is there anything I can do for you? And at that time, I had just met with, and you remember Chris Marshak, right?
Oh, sure. Great guy.
I reached out to Chris to record some songs. I'm like, I heard you can record people's music. Would you want to produce music for me? And he had showed up at another gig I was doing out in Riverhead. And he just walked in. And I was in the middle of playing. He goes, hey, can I play with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. He brought out his percussions and started playing.
Wow.
And I said, let me show you the songs I want to record. So I played them. And then as I'm playing, we stopped the song. He goes, hey, Walter, can we take a break right now? And I said, yeah, sure. He goes, I'd like to talk to you outside. And he took me outside. And you know Chris's mannerisms. He's just so calm and cool. And
Great, yeah.
it's wonderful. And he goes, I know you want me to record your songs. And he played me some music in his car. And he said, this is a friend of mine I work with. His name's Ben Wish. I think we should reach out to him to record your music. So I did. The problem was I couldn't afford it.
Okay.
So we had this wonderful producer. He's well known. He's done a lot of great work. And then within a week, this man comes up behind me and says, I'd love to help you out.
Really?
What can I do? Yeah. And I said, well, it's funny because I wanted to make this record, but I can't afford it. He goes, well, I have the money. Come by tomorrow and pick it up and make that record. And that's how that started happening. Yeah. So we made this beautiful record, and it was, like I said earlier, it was something I wrote of like a healing album, I guess. And very heartfelt. It wasn't a pop record or anything that would be noted for awards or anything like that, right? So I gave it to the man who paid for it, and he called me into his office to come meet with him, and I went to meet him, and he said, this is beautiful, we love it. And he knew people in the industry, and he knew people that owned all the radio stations. And he said, but we want you to play country music. You need to write country songs. And that's how the meeting ended. So shortly after that, I mean, I was kind of burnt out, living alone, and I had nothing to lose, so I moved to South Carolina. I wanted to get immersed in that country way of life and write country music, because I didn't want to just listen to music on the radio and write what I heard. I don't believe in that. I won't even listen to the radio in my car, because I don't want to write what I just heard. I want to create original art if I can, you know, just to be me in my songs.
Sure.
And somebody had led me to Columbia and said, yeah, there's a lot of work there, you'll love it. And I didn't like it at all. There was no work, and it was very hard. And luck had it that a friend had a friend that just bought a hotel in Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
And he hired me to live in his hotel and play there every day in Myrtle Beach. Yeah, and it was great. You know, it was cool. I played the beach bum. I was dressed boho. I had the long hair, and then while I was there, I met somebody that was connected to or somehow related to the Marshall Tucker Band, and they said, you belong in Lake Norman, which is just like, it's almost like being in Long Island when you go to Lake Norman. It's a big lake. It's probably the size, as much shorefront.
It's almost the same exact square foot
as Long Island, I think. It's a big lake.
Yeah.
So I called a friend in New York, and he said, my brother just moved to Lake Norman. And then the next day he goes, my brother got you a gig. So I drove there. It was an hour and a half to 2 hours from where I was living. And I ended up working 4 or 5 nights a week there almost immediately. I left at Myrtle Beach, and then I driving 2 hours with traffic there and 2 hours back every day. It was killing me in my car, so I moved to Lake Norman. But I did meet a country writer who was active in the industry. He took a liking to my record, and he was trying to coach me into writing more commercial country music. And then lo and behold, I met Miss April. And when April came into my world, I started really learning what the Southern country existence is really all about. And living down in the South, you really get to see the camaraderie between everybody, because everybody, their mothers, their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers and grandfathers all play banjos, guitars, or some kind of instrument, and it's just a thing. So it's not like people are showboating around like other cities you might go to. It's just what we do. It's just, and I found that family music tie. We went to visit her brother, who's an amazing musician, and her cousin was there, and she was there. And a short while after being there, they sat down and started singing 3-part harmonies for a while and singing all the old country, and it was something to behold. It was really cool.
Hey, Marty.
It was really a good thing. So,
it sounds like you met the Carter family reimagined. In
a way, and she's got stories about that she can tell you. But
please.
So, I'd love to play freestyle. I'm just I don't like to rehearse. I like that spur moment, and I'm used to playing with amazing musicians that can just fly off the cuff and make amazing music, progressive, jazz, rock, blues. And April would listen to me, and I'd try to cover a country song, and that's not how it goes. That's not the right way to play it. And I'd be like, I don't care, I'm playing it my way. But I started learning, and she goes, "This is how Mama used to do it." And she'd show me the riff, and this is how Mama would play this riff, and this is how Mama would do it.
One fear that I had, honestly, when we first met, his experience in jazz. Well, just if we're being candid and honest, you know, when you're flying by the seat of your britches and you don't know what chord they're going to next, you just fall right in, right? Well, I was taught that, you play it by the book, and as long as you play it by the book, and then you can add a couple of things here and there to make it your own, then that's just how I was raised. That's how I was taught. And so when he comes in playing all these F major W chords and tying his fingers in knots, and you can't tell where the hell he's going next, you're like, that chord is not in that song. Stop. What are you doing?
I changed the flavor.
Because down here, I was raised that if you disrespect the music, you won't be welcomed anywhere to play it.
Oh, interesting.
So it was hard for me to understand, because there was no culture. And the only culture I grew up with, on a farm, with a garden, we had FHA. FFA, Future Farmers of America, we sang in chorus. So there was no culture. There was no Italian. We had Mexican pizzas. I mean, there was no culture.
I understand now why it was like that, because you had to go play with neighbors and visit people, and you better play it the same way so you could play along with others, I guess.
If it's a 1-4-5,
I never played well with others. That's the problem.
Yeah, if it's a 1-4-5 using the Nashville number system and G, C, and D. If it's a 1-4-5 and 1 is G, then you got C and D. If everybody knows where you're going, you can all play together. But if you're all playing a different song, it sounds like you're murdering a cat.
No, you're making me sound bad now. It wasn't like that at all.
So I had to learn his ad-lib
I put some color
and
in,
see where it fit in.
I put color in chords because I play usually alone. So if you're just strumming G, C, D all night long, it is monotonous and boring. But if you add 6 and 9s and majors and minors and color the chords up when you're a solo artist, it becomes beautiful and interesting. That's how I look at it.
This brings us to the end of part 1 of our conversation with Walter Finley and April Dawn. There's so much more to discover on their background and their music. Check out part 2 with Walter Finley and April Dawn. And thanks for joining us. Please remember to share and comment on the show to help spread the great word of what we're doing here on the Long Island Sound. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment, and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.